You can save hundreds of thousands of dollars when buying a property just by knowing the games and the lies real estate agents tell you. Hi, I'm Sam Powell.
And I'm Jared Krause, and we're the co-hosts of the Property Pals Australia podcast. And in this episode, Sam and I speak to Scott Aggett, who is the founder of Hello Haus and is over 3 decades in the property investment game. He's also been a part of more than 4,000 property deals under his belt across 3 continents. Scott's always also learned that buyers deserve a better way to acquire property, a way that helps them buy faster, for less, and without real estate games. Now, in this pod, Scott and I and Sam talk about what selling agents actually do to make you pay more at auctions.
Yeah, we also go into the depths of why selling agents push you to auctions and want you to overpay. Obviously, they're getting paid by the seller. And we also jump into how to control the buying process the ways professionals do to help you through this process if you choose to go it alone. We also discuss the juicy topic of real estate agents' lies and game playing to manipulate you to pay that emotional premium at the end of the day. And finally, look, we get our crystal ball out, as I like to do, and so we discuss what we believe is in store for the future of the property buying process in Australia, don't we, Jared?
We do. Yeah, before we get stuck in this episode, this is not the only way we can help you for free. Get our mini course on how to maximize your borrowing capacity at propertypals.au/resources. This part 2 in this episode is a juicy one. It's really good, packed with so many great experiences and stories that Scott shares around negotiations and why people pay so much more for property. It's not one to be missed. You're absolutely going to enjoy it. Let's dive in. Welcome to Property Pals, the podcast where we share everything around how to build a property portfolio, from researching areas, financing, structuring, buying, selling, and reinvesting to live a life of financial independence. As a disclaimer, any information shared by myself, Jared, Sam, and the Property Pals team is strictly general and should not be taken as constituting professional advice. You should consider seeking independent legal, financial, and taxation advice from a qualified professional.
The biggest issue I think people in like the analysis side of things is like it's got alluded to. You can go and put all your data information around. I'm not paying any more than this based on comparable sales, and as a valuer, and the logical sound mind person is going to go and look. Well, what's recently been sold to help justify what I'm willing to pay for this? I think where people do get really tricked up is they rely too heavily on, I guess, certain sales, and there's more to it than just that, because even if there was a direct comparable, like you're right, you could have 2 houses right next to each other. One sold for $1.2 million, and then this one's available. And if they're absolutely identical, like you can't sort of change them, you've still got 5 or 6 buyers that missed out on the 1.2, and they've all used that as a benchmark now. So in their mind, like there's not a lot of supply in the market. So if it's a good agent, who obviously trains as well in good scripts and dialogues to actually extract that emotional premium, that is not going to be a $1.2 million sale in a competitive market, because that's the new benchmark. So it goes over. And then that's what myself and my team, we're not just looking at comparables, we're looking at the heat in the market. We're assessing those key data points to actually go, well, where could this potentially lie? Because the worst thing that you want someone to do is miss out on a property for $5,000 or $10,000 and stay out of that market for another 3 or so months, because that growth is the issue, that they're going to be paying more in the future. So it's just trying to, I guess, this is the coaching element where we're really holding people's hand to get to what they actually want. It's just highly nervous, and this, because we're playing with so much money, I think people do get a little bit caught up in analysis paralysis, and it's their own detriment.
There's also so much. Oh yeah, you guys one.
Yeah, it also sounds like with the what you were talking about before, Scott, is you got this, the good agents that just know how the market works in terms of not just like the market of buyers, but the selling agent and the buyers. They just know, and like you said, it just takes like a very short amount of time to get to the number. And then it sounds like the other side, as you go down from there, is like it's just your negotiation is just training them to see what the market value price is.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing with the data as well, even if you've got great comparable sales evidence around you, you've got no idea of the human element around each of those independent sales. So as a selling agent, if you came to me and said, well, 12 Smith Street only sold for $1 million, I'd say, yep, great. Well, I handled that sale, or my mate's the agent handled that sale, and they'd already bought already. So they absolutely needed to sell really quickly. So they could have sold for $100,000 more than that, but they had to get out really fast. So therefore, the 1-2 is irrelevant. There's always a story, and that's why you've got to realize as a buyer, you'll never win in that battle, because any agent should be able to spin some story off that and say, oh yeah, but it had that weird pool shape at the back. And the feedback from all the buyers that we had that went through there, and we had about 20 of our buyers go through there, everyone hated the pool shape at the back, so no one wanted that house, even though it's on a great street and the land size was good. Everyone hated that pool on the back bit, so that's why it sold for X. We prided ourselves on that sort of information. Like when we had the Surrey Hills office, we made it a business practice that we would go and see every listing, every house, not every apartment, every house that came on in the market. We would go through our competitors open for inspections, right? Now, no other agent did that to us. We never saw any of our other agents come through our properties because they don't like it. It's a bit weird when agents go through other people's houses, other agents' listings. But we made it a point, we would get in the face of all the other agents, and we went into every one of those listings. And we did it deliberately, because when someone came to negotiate against me and said, oh, well, I'm weighing up Reservoir Street, and I said, oh, Reservoir Street? Shit, it's terrible spot on Reservoir Street. And then that thing at the back, it's got that tree, and then that commercial building's looking straight back into you. Like, yeah, I've been there. Yeah. Why? Why would you buy that?
Yeah.
Are you really using that, comparing that with my one here? Like, oh, come on, the chalk and cheese. Like, I've had heaps of my buyers go through the Reservoir Street one. You're like, It's that kind of thing that if you're a good agent, you can just put yourself in a position where you can just out-negotiate these people. So there's a human element to all these things as well as
what I call that
game.
is buying respect in a deal, where you clearly state that just as much, if not typically, you'll want to showcase that you know more. And what happens psychologically is that just instantly buys respect. And once you've bought respect, this is what I believe anyway, once you've bought respect in that, I guess in negotiation or that discussion, that other person knows that you know a lot, and if not more, and that can allow them to decrease their confidence levels, and then yours can, your doesn't happen always within you, but like throughout that dynamic is that they can go, oh, wow, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about, and that can allow you to get better prices for deals.
Yeah, it's when you can turn the screw and crush their little soul. I like what you're saying, Jared. I like where you're going. Yeah.
I'm trying to say it in the most elegant way, but yes, crush their soul. Exactly.
Another element I know this riff on this for a little bit, but another element is like what and Scott taught me this, right? It's like the emotional overwhelm. Like you can't put a price on human emotion during this time frame, and that's also a thing as buyers you're up against, because you don't know what your competition's gone through to get to this current negotiation. And like Scotty, you've seen it. Like, can you share me some stories actually?
Yes.
Like as an agent,
stories.
What's some of the most standout events that you've seen, like from an emotional buyer that I guess really blew you away from how they acted, like what they did? Like, do you have any stories around that?
I think there's probably tons, but I've had 1,000 drinks between then and now, so my memory's probably shot from back in the day. Or I've chosen to close off that memory. It's probably a better version of this. I've put that in a box, those real estate days, and put it to the side. I've just taken the best of the knowledge that I needed out of it. But I think the stories that sort of stick with me, and probably around like expressions of interest, and you've probably heard me talk about this before when I'm getting our clients to set their target price or their walkaway price. But we would sell a lot of things by expressions of interest, and you'd get a client come in and they'd be red hot on the property, and you'd explain to them there's 3 or 4 other people that also want to buy this property, and then it's maybe sealed bids on my desk by 12 o'clock on Monday. And then you might be quoting, let's say, offers over $1 million, and you'd get, someone come in at 1.1, someone come in at 1.101, and then someone come in at 1,110,000. in $100 or something. Like everyone tries their little trick or whatever, and then someone would come in at like 1.24 and overpay by like $130,000. And you realize then how much of it is driven by emotion, how much of it is driven by buyer fatigue, how much of it's driven by inexperience and understanding of how the buying process works and the data behind it. So there's stories like that I've got a lot of where people have paid those prices. I've got tons of examples of when I've had barely any interest at an auction and then able to negotiate against people to bid against themselves in an auction live. And unfortunately, I reckon that happens at almost every second auction across the country every weekend. Is people get sucked into that vortex by an agent. And an example of what I used to do in that situation, Sam knows this one as well. I was an auction agent. I used Damien Cooley, who's arguably the top auctioneer in the country, and he did all of our auctions. And I would say to Damien before the auction, this is the reserve price. Don't call it on the market, though. I want you to exhaust all of the bidding until it stops, right? At no point say the property's on the market. And then when the property is exhausted, I'd go over to the highest bidder and potentially the underbidders at that point as well, or the second best bidders, and say to them, I get my business card out of my top pocket and a pen, and I'd write down, okay, let's say the bidding stopped at 1.1 and the reserve was maybe $1,050,000. It's already 50 grand above, right? I'd go back to that lead bidder and say, look, reserve's 1.225. We're not quite there yet. Will you pay it? Can you pay 1.225? And they'd be like, no, mate, 1.1, and I'm the highest bidder here. Like, go and speak to someone else, but this is it. And I said, okay, great. Well, look, I'm on your side. I want to get the deal done here. Obviously, we're a little bit far apart. I'm going to talk to the other buyers. Just have a think about it. 1.225, we'll buy it now, and I'm going to go speak to the vendors for you, and I'll be back out in a second. Damien, just hold on for a moment. Just hold on for a second. I'd go to the underbidders and ask them the same thing. They'd say no. I'd go into the owners. I'd go straight into the owners in the kitchen. Everyone else is out the back garden. I'd say, congratulations, we've got 50 grand over reserve in this instance. Well done. Just let me earn my commission for you and just see if I can get some more money. And they're ready to pop the champagne out the back. And then I go back out and I get my same business card with 1.225 on it. And I put a line through it and I'd say, mate, good news. I've got them down, Jared, to 1.2. Will you pay 1.2? No. Okay. What will you pay? Can you pay 1.17 or 1.18? No. Okay. You have to give me something here. Give me something and I'm going to go back and work on the vendor. Can you give me 20 grand? Okay, yeah, we'll give you 20 grand. Okay, $20,000 more, Damien. Yep, and just give me a minute. I'll go around to the underbidders and I'll play the same game and go to the other people that are not even registered just to pretend that they're interested in it as well. And I'd go back and forth and do that for as long as it took me to get you to pay 20, 30, 50, 60, $100,000 more against yourself live in auction conditions when we were already 50,000 over the reserve before I started that process. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's what's happening in real time, and buyers don't realize that if you're standing there at a public auction and you're the highest bidder with your hand up last and there's no one else bidding, that is the time when you say to the agent, go do your fucking job and get it sold, then put me under the blowtorch and get me to pay more money, right? But people don't have the confidence to do it because they're so emotionally invested. So I don't know if that's one of the stories you wanted, but that's something that I consistently remember as part of the job. And you just see people pay massive overs like that in that situation.
Mate, I'm smiling and laughing all the way through that commentary. That was great because it's well, this is what you're up against, and like you're obviously a career agent, you were very successful in your own right, and that's the reason you had mentors, you had coaches, you had hundreds of thousands of transactions under your belt at that stage as an agent. And this is the issue in the industry that, we're trying to bridge at Hello Haus, is just helping people understand what they're up against and giving them a cost affordable solution. And that's why we're both so passionate about it. But yeah, I got a good laugh out of that one, Scott.
And that's why we can pick apart all the things that we see online. And I'm so passionate about being a voice in the industry of where I think the industry is flawed in some ways. Like, there's a number of really high-profile buyers agents in Australia that have run advertising campaigns on Instagram or Facebook saying they've got 100% auction clearance, success, 100% auction success. I mean, that's an absolute furphy, right? That's like saying, well, I'm guaranteeing you that if you sign on to pay me, I'm just going to wait till auction day and then I'm going to absolutely pay the highest price every single time and I'll guarantee it. It's like, why would I pay you to do that? That's a terrible, terrible outcome for me as the consumer, right? So even the methodology or the thinking of why you'd run a marketing campaign as that's a value add to your customer. I'm just shocked that a buyer's agent would do that. And there's another one that we've seen and we laugh about in the office where the guy ran an ad, said there was a picture of him holding up a paddle at the back of an auction room, and the title was, "The agents call me a shark. They don't see me and I'm, below the surface." And then right at the end of the auction, I'm in and I buy the auction. And I'm like, oh my God, they love the shark. The shark just comes out of nowhere and pays the highest price. Like who doesn't love the shark?
I should give him a
Comes
call.
on every one of my auctions. Give me a call, the shark. Yeah, I'm like, wow, how is this even a thing that you're bragging about? Yeah, I had the one buyer's agent I saw had this massive rant on Facebook and saying that basically suck shit to the selling agent because he didn't accept our pre-auction offer and then it sold for less on auction day. I was like, mate, you're the clown. You offered more up front and it sold for less at a public auction. Why are you ranting in public that the agent didn't accept your offer? Like, what were you doing paying a stupid high offer at that point anyway, or offering that price in the first instance? I'm like, how do you not get that? That's just stupidity, absolute stupidity to run that as a marketing campaign.
An idea like that. So aside from, just for the audience, I'd love to hear like a story around, like you said, there's so many auctions that happen within Australia, but there's also some of the properties that don't sell through auction. What are some of the things that selling agents will do to, maybe it's an example that you have or a story that to get a higher price and maybe bid against yourself as well?
Well, a good one that comes to mind is in Victoria. We have a lot of problems with properties going to auction or otherwise that need a certain certificate or detail, so Section 32 in Victoria in the contract. And the agents will have a contract at the start of the campaign with the seller, but don't collate all the information that you need to make a decision until typically right when the cooling off period lapses in Victoria, which is 3 days before a live auction. So they'll produce the paperwork on the Wednesday before the Saturday auction and say, it just turned up now. And now all you can do is buy it unconditionally. Yep. Or you compete at the auction. So they just drag everyone through this process. So that's just like an absolute selling trick to get people to not be able to make an auction offer, pre-auction offer, and drive everyone to their same, auction cooker environment or force them into making an unconditional sale. In New South Wales, this isn't necessarily a trick, but this is something that buyers need to be aware of. In Queensland, WA, and lots of other parts of the country where we buy properties, it seems to be the norm to just expect a building and pest clause and a finance clause. But in Sydney, when I would sell, I basically sold nothing on a cooling off period of any description for the entire career that I had as a selling agent. So, if you came to me and you said, I want to buy this property and I need a 5 or a 10-day cooling off, I'd say, great, well, when you work out that you really want to buy this property and you get all your ducks lined up, come back and sign a 66W certificate to waive the right to cooling off and you can buy it under auction conditions. Meanwhile, I'm going to keep talking to everyone else about your offer and trying to sell it to somebody else.
Right.
So we just forced everyone into buying it under auction conditions. I don't think there's anything illegal with that. I think that's just a smarter way to sell property. It's not a great way necessarily for people to have to buy property, but you need to know as a consumer that that's what you're competing against. Same with, I think a lot of content that I've written over the years around how agents don't want your offer. A couple of reasons why agents don't want your offers that would impact how you buy a property is, certainly an auction campaign, but could be any sales campaign. They don't want to move the guide price because it potentially turns away a few of the bottom buyers that would push the medium buyers, that push the top buyers. So they want as many people in that race, or many horses in that race as possible. It also potentially pushes people away. If they've got too high a guide price, it may kill off the momentum that they've got in the campaign. If people don't perceive there to be value there when they look at the images and the floor plan and the location and match that against what the price guide is that's displayed. So a lot of agents simply do not want your offer. So they'll use whatever terminology or dialogue they can to push you away from making an offer. Things like, look, we've taken written instructions from the vendor that they're committed to selling on auction day, or there's multiple parties. I'm dealing with Sam and his cousin Jared, and they're just not going to make a decision because they're not on the same page and they want a transparent auction day. And that's the best opportunity for you as the buyer, is to buy at an auction day. The one that I always get, and we still get it all the time, which is just a straight no, but they won't say no, is that's a great offer, pre-auction offer. Thank you very much. And look, it'll absolutely buy it on the day, but they're just not ready to take that offer now. They need a couple more weeks of education. But look, I know that if that was the best offer they had on Saturday the 8th, they'd absolutely take it, and you'll be the buyer. So, I welcome you to be there on the day and compete. All of that is just saying the same thing.
Come
like,
to auction. Yeah.
join the queue. You're a sheep. I'm going to run this process. I'm in control. You don't have an ounce of control in this situation. It's all me, and you'll do exactly what I say. And I'm going to put you in that pressure cooker environment to extract an emotional premium out of you at that point. And it's also done for the reverse reason is that, and this is part of the reason why I got out of the industry that I referred to up front, is that agents are going in and overquoting to win the listing. They've then got to underquote to get buyer interest there, otherwise I'll overcook the campaign. And they need their 4 weeks to educate the seller. And by not asking for any offers and by turning away all the offers, right, or only encouraging really low offers, all they're saying to their customer is, or their vendor, there's no real interest in the home. Look, it's not been as buoyant as I thought. It's the market. It's not me. It's the market. I see value at your place at $1 million, but the market's telling us 850, 900, whatever it might be, because they're not encouraging any of those best buyers to put their best foot forward. And then, of course, they get a lower than expected or lower than initially expected reserve price out of their seller. They've undercooked it to all the buyers and got as many buyers there. They then let them fight for it. And that's where they've got the ability to see it sail past reserve price, and you get the letterbox, note in the door saying, I was the difference between selling it for $1 million or $1,050,000. I sold it over reserve. I'm the best agent. But it's a complete cycle and game. And unless you know how that cycle works, you're in the middle of that whitewash. Yeah.
And so that being on the other side, and have, like you said, they don't want you to have an ounce of control. And just want to get you to an auction. Being on the other side as the buyer to prevent you going to auction, what are some of the things that you can do to get your offer in and do that? Is there any way to get some control?
The best thing that we do is move with speed. Speed's paramount to your buying success. So that's the way that we control that situation is speed. And normally what goes with speed with me is leverage. So you have to have some form of leverage that you introduce into the conversation. Now, most people that try to act with speed do it the wrong way, and speed and leverage the wrong way. So they'll say things to me, and this was just constant when I was a selling agent. Mate, if you don't accept it by close of business today, fuck off. Jog on. I'm out. I'll take my contract. I want it back. I'm out. And I'm like, okay, that's a very aggressive stance. And, I'm not even going to bother to explain to you why, but behind the scenes, there's just no way I can convince my seller, who needs more time than that. They want to sleep on it. They're older. They want to talk about it. You've not asked me any questions about what the seller's circumstance are, who they are, where they're going next, what the timing is to really put yourself in a position to make an educated decision that that's not going to work. And if you worked with me, I could probably get this done in 2 days or 3 days. And it's not because I'm flashing it around to other people. It's because I've got an older vendor who's not going to make a snap decision. They're going to want to talk to their kids and make the right outcome for them come to fruition. So those types of things is the wrong way. And leverage is done the wrong way when you come into it at the 11th hour and you say, I really love this property. I'm going to make an offer. But I've got another one as well that I'm really interested in. Also that if I don't buy this one, I'm going to go buy that one. The agents are used to that dialogue all the time. Like everyone's always got another property, or everyone's always in a hurry kind of scenario, because that's what people believe is the easy thing to do. But when that's done really well, you can control those outcomes. If you've got a seller that is willing to sell, I can do whatever magic I want to do after 4,000 transactions and 30 years in the game. But if they've got a seller that's hell bent on holding out till auction day, my trick isn't going to work right at the start. If they've got a seller who understands it's going to be a multi-offer situation, or that the agent's already got multiple parties that's interested in it, and they've got big kahunas as a seller and they're happy to roll the dice and they want to take that chance, well, then the dialogue's not going to work. So it doesn't work all the time. There's no sort of one trick that we apply that is guaranteed to get the outcome. But I work on a law of, percentages, like what's the highest chance of this line working at this point here, or what's the highest chance of that option B working in that scenario, and I play the game based on experience like you do when you're buying businesses and you've got that level of experience. So what we would normally do, long way around to answer that, is the speed and leverage, and I do it in this way. I'd say we move like grease lightning when we see a property to get through due diligence and analysis to understand the right number to pay. When the conversation starts, though, before that with the agent, so you have to start building this strategy into play before you even got to that level. So it might be a case of, if you were the agent, Jared, it might be me ringing you to say, hey, Jared, it's Scott here. I'm representing my client, Sam. Sam and I have been working together for a few months. Jared, Sam's been on another property that I put forward to him off market in Surrey Hills, and we've been on it for about 2 weeks. We just got the building and pest done now, and it looks like we'll have those results back tomorrow or the following day. And we're in a position where it's off market, but the agent's saying to us, it's Tuesday today, that if we don't exchange by close of business Wednesday night, that they're going to put that property openly on the market. And of course, Sam's been looking for a few months. We don't want that to happen. We've just seen your Smith Street property come online now on realestate.com. That looks like a great property. It's in their ideal location. It's in a better location than the one they're looking at. The photos look great. Floor plan looks really good. It would be their preference to buy that, Jared, if they could get that at what they perceive as a fair value range for them. They've got a really healthy budget. They've been through the process and they know the market back to front. We've seen everything in that price range. We've been really active. So they're ready to pull the trigger today. What's the earliest that you can get me through that property? Can you get me through there tonight? And you'll say, right. No, the first open for inspections on Saturday. Okay, great. What buys it, Jared? Where do you think I need to position this client? What would buy that property? Oh, look, it's early days. Haven't had an inspection yet. Okay, great. Well, look, as I said, I'm not going to be here on Saturday at 11 o'clock with this client. So we're going to buy that other property tomorrow. I think this is a chance for you to sell it to the highest bidder in the marketplace because they're the most experienced and they've been looking for some time. So where do I need to position this property for them to have the highest chance of closing this deal quickly? Oh, look, and at that point, typically an agent says to me, look, we're guiding offers over $1 million. We've already rejected $1.05 million off our database, and they counter offered at 1.1. It'd need to be at 1.1 or close to it to get the deal done. That type of language is what we get out of it. But what I've done there is I've planted the seed already with you that I need to get in quickly, otherwise I won't be here tomorrow, right? So then I go back to trying to get in. All right, Joe, well, that's great. Well, that's well within their financial means. So can I get through there tonight? I've asked that already. Can you get us through there really quickly? No. Okay, well, what about 7 o'clock tomorrow morning? No, man, I couldn't do that. Okay, 12 o'clock tomorrow, lunchtime, can we do that? And I just keep going until I get an answer. And all I'm looking to do is get you in there before anyone else. Because if I've got you in there before anyone else, I know that there's potentially a motivated seller. Because if the agent knows that their seller's got no interest in selling prior, there's no way they're going out of their way to show you through as a private inspection. You can just jog on and join the queue on Saturday. So there's already an insight into the situation in this negotiation. I already know when you tell me that you can get me through at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, first and only, that seller is open to selling prior. So there's either they've bought, they're nervous, they're inexperienced, they're sick, whatever it might be. They're private people and they don't want it on the market. But there's potentially something there that I can push hard and drill into a little bit later on. So we're going to get you through there. Sam's going to look at that property. We're going to move really quickly. And then the next conversation, I'm going to refer back to what I told you already on that call yesterday. So, Jared, as I explained to you yesterday, we're a long way down the line. In fact, we're just about to pull the trigger on that other property. But again, this is their preference. This property would be their preference if we could buy it at what we believe is a fair price. We're not going to chip you, Jared. What I want to do with your permission is I'm going to make you one offer, okay? I'm not going to mess around. We don't have time. I don't want to disrespect your sellers or you. Appreciate you getting us through there and you giving us this opportunity. With your permission, I'm just going to make one offer. There'll be no other negotiation, and we're going to give it our best shot to buy it, or we'll jog on and buy the other property. Is that okay with you? Yeah, great. Okay. Our offer's this. Bang. Unconditional. There it is, right at the top of the tree. And now I typically offer 95 to 97% of the way towards the target price that we put on it. So let's say hypothetically we put 1.1 on it, then we're going to aim between 5 and 2% of that target price with our first offer. And that's very deliberate. It's because if you offer below that, you typically get a no. If you get a no, you have to start bidding against yourself. Start bidding against yourself, they know you're emotionally invested. It's easy for them to say no, you keep throwing more money at it. Yep.
Exactly.
But typically, I engage the seller and can close the deal in 1 or 2 quick steps from there, or I buy it with that first offer. So the whole time I've been leveraging that other property that I told you about, and it's not, don't blame me, Jared, it's the agent, it's the other agent that's done that. Yep, but it's the important thing is I planted that seed in the very first phone call, and I come back to that point as an anchor and hit it again. And that's way more powerful than introducing it right when you're trying to make an offer, because it's just water for ducks back to an agent at that stage. So it's about moving with speed. It's about using that leverage point. And at the end of the day, a lot of agents, I've had a heap of hate mail when I talk about this stuff online from agents, and agents like, fuck off, idiot. As if that's going to work. You'd never outbluff me or kind of thing like that. It's like, it's not about that. It's not about the agent. It's not about who's the best agent. It's not about who's the best negotiator. It's about, is the seller motivated to sell? If the seller's motivated to sell, they'll dictate whether they accept that offer or not, right?
At the end of the day, these people that come in and have a bit of a whinge don't understand that it's, at the end of the day, it's really up to the buyer and the seller that buys it. The negotiator and the selling agent are just helping and facilitating it make it happen, right? Without the buyer saying yes and no. I guess there is some training on either side, but I'm with you. I mean, people are going to bring their egos up and say, I wouldn't ever do that as a selling agent. But at the end of the day, who's paying for the property is the buyer, and who's taking the money.
And the seller's in control, because once they get presented with an opportunity where they say, okay, Sam's here today, Sam won't be here on Saturday. You wanted 1.1. We've got you 1.185 with no stress, done, unconditional today. There's a lot of people that will just take that offer and be done.
Yeah.
A, because they don't want to deal with the agent for another 4 weeks because they hate agents. B, they don't want people trouncing through their house, for the next 4 weeks or whatever it might be until they get it sold. And C, they're risk adverse. The bird in the hand is better than rolling the dice to get another 15 grand. And they might not have thought their property was ever worth 1.1 in the first place because it was an optimistic price that the agent was hoping for, or whatever it might be. So a lot to do with it is the seller's situation. And there's a lot of agents, I will say as well, that are volume agents. So you get the right agent and they'll force feed that deal, into the seller, and they'll get that deal done because they want to turn over stock really quickly, because that's how they make lots of commission. You get the right seller and it'll sell itself. So, there's a whole heap of different circumstances that the cards can fall right for me in that situation. So it's worth doing it every time.
Yeah, you want to give the seller, if you can find out what the seller wants and find out what the agent wants, and you can give it to them, and then you do it in a creative way that is also great for you and your buyer, then a deal happens, right?
Yeah, and the other thing that comes out of this that's good news for me is that if you're going to lose, I'd rather lose in the first 24 hours than lose in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 4 weeks, because it's a waste of time. So if I put an offer that we believe is within cooee of what the target price is and where market value is, so let's say hypothetically we're at 1,085,000 and they want 1.1 plus, and they won't take it over 15 grand, well then I guarantee you in a rising market that thing's selling for more money later, and you'll never circle back and buy it. So if you're that close, they'll engage. So if you make an offer and you believe the value is worth 1.1 and they don't engage, then probably it's because the agent's told them it's worth 1.2 or some other astronomical price, or they've got ambitions of a huge number. So it's just a waste of time. So you're better off to rip that Band-Aid off instantly and know that you've got no chance on this, and then jog on and go find something else.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Sam?
Nuggets of gold there, people.
People are gonna have to re-listen to this, because that's gold. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah. I say, obviously very mindful of time, and this is we'll probably do this in a 2-part series, to be honest with you. So this will be the end of part 2. So if you haven't listened to part 1, go in and listen on. I do have one question, mate, and obviously there's so much. I mean, despite how young you look for a 47-year-old, there's so much experience there. There's a bit of Drew Innes cheese that I'm sprinkling on there to make you like me more. From your perspective, right? How's the property buying process in Australia evolved over the years? And I guess looking in that futuristic mind of yours, where do you see it going in the future? And I guess obviously Hello Haus as the conduit to that market. Like, what's your viewpoints in the future with this buying process that we're evolving?
Oh man, you have to make me think. Yeah, that's tough. I think there hasn't been a huge amount of change really in the industry over the entire time I've been in it since the mid 90s. Really, like I don't think there's been a huge amount of change or a fundamental shift in the way that we transact property. There's been certain things like it used to be that you drive around people to do lots of private inspections. That became more open homes, and now a lot of it is done online and digital, and people are prepared to buy things sight unseen. Definitely been a rise of the buyer's agent that wasn't there sort of 20 years ago, 25 years ago. I think in the last 5 years noticeably, but definitely in the last 7 years, there's been a massive rise of regional investor buyers and through buyer's agents, which just wasn't a thing ever. Even when I was a real estate agent, I don't think really that was a thing. I never heard of anyone really buying many regional properties at that point. People would just buy typically close to where they lived, and seemed to be that most of the people that I dealt with as clients owned other properties in the same suburb or near them or in the same city or where they were from originally, but not a lot had kind of thought about the long-term data and cash flow and looked at other markets as well. So that's definitely been a shift. And then probably the other thing that's come out of it is there's a lot of digital access now to data quickly. So you can get a gauge of, right into the weeds really on the analysis side of it, which is a big benefit to understand really the comparable sales and growth rates and all those things. So a lot of that has got a lot simpler to work out using those digital tools. But the system is still stacked against the buyer. And I think that's been the biggest reason that Hello Haus has resonated with the public, is that there's no clarity, or what's the right word for it? Clarity is probably a good thing. It's all smoke and mirrors on the agent side, right? So when I sat there as a real estate agent, I lied to all the sellers, I lied to all the buyers, and they all lied back to me. I'm being very general in here. I didn't lie to everyone, but just generally speaking, that's the game. And there's lots of agents will tell you, I don't lie. Well, it's not the game, but that's just BS as well. They're just lying to you to protect their image. Unfortunately, that game is just, people are always going to go in and overhype it to the sellers and be incredibly optimistic. We see it every day, Sam, with running our agent selection. Agents can't help themselves but go hard on the price, and then the results don't always back it up at the other end, which is why we run all of our accurate analysis up front to make sure the clients are aware what their property is actually worth before the agents try to inflate their expectations up front. So that market, that side of the market, I think is needing a lot of work for transparency. And then we saw what should have been a transparent process with the rise of the buyer's agent, and I don't believe that's very transparent either. I think that was just as many smoke and mirrors. There's not really any accountability. There's not really any transparency. We don't even know the real numbers of how many people use a buyer's agent. Like I don't think it's a very well policed industry at all. And there's an incredibly low bar of entry to get into that. And I wrote a big blog piece about this a couple of weeks ago, and Sam has seen this firsthand, that I've even got, buyer's agents that are paying me or paying us to negotiate for them because they don't understand how to negotiate. Like, how are you in control of hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars for clients that you represent? What other industry in Australia, like financial advice industry that's so regulated, could you get away with a lack of education or any responsibility like that? So it's incredibly unregulated, and something needs to be done about it. So I think, Sam, the future of it is going to be, I hope that it's going to be around transparency and accountability, which is why I believe that we've got a 6-7 year head start in that regard, and why I feel really good about what we've built, because I can lay straight in bed at night knowing that we're doing the right thing by our consumers. We're being completely open about our results, and we're accountable in terms of, the performance of the business. And I think we need more businesses like that for anything to happen in that space. I don't necessarily think that all the digital tools around fractional ownership, around, we've seen lots of this come and go, around sort of digital agents, like selling is that good at this point. It's going to need a lot of work. I don't love those digital buying platforms either. We've toyed around, unfortunately, been involved in a number of those in transactions, and they're horrible and clunky and full of holes. So I think they've got a long way to go as well. So technology is definitely having a big swing in the property space, but there hasn't been a huge amount of things from a buyer's perspective that I think are going to really impact them positively just yet.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny to see such an asset that has been around forever in terms of property.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Scotty there for a little bit.
Oh man, God.
You're getting grilled, Scott. You're gonna have to
Yeah.
give it to him on the next podcast episode.
Yeah.
But I was just saying,
send you a diary invite for an 8 a.m. meeting on Monday morning, Sammy.
Oh, you know what that was,
knock you down a bit. So, yeah, in terms of like property being such an aged asset, I mean, to bring digital in, like turning a big ship, it just takes so much, and there's a lot of stuff. What you said about regulation and transparency, I think the world is heading that way anyway in outside of property, and I think that is going to be a really cool thing in terms of like it would be great to see some regulation around like having somebody in terms of like if you not doesn't need to necessarily be a regulation, but it's like a solicitor or a conveyancer. Most people that buy a property, or I don't know what the percentages are, but a high percentage of people that buy a property are just going to use a conveyancer, which is a smart move to do. Why is it not the same for negotiations? It's crazy to think about it. And I hope that does move in that direction.
Well, it's possibly the biggest financial...
for your business as well, but also for the world,
Yeah, for the world in general. It's the biggest financial outlay in your life for most people. And people, in Australia at least, it's seen as a badge of honour to go it alone. Like, we joke about this all the time in the office that, Arnie Beryl, screwed down an agent 20 grand and why can't I go out and do it then for my first time? But little do they realise that the property was on at 850 and Arnie Beryl negotiated down to 830, but it was price positioning. It was only worth 800 in the first place. So Arnie Beryl paid 30 grand too much. No one knows what's going on behind their back. They're just getting fleeced in real time with their eyes wide open. And it is a real shame in Australia that people still sort of cling on to this badge of honour thing where they're prepared to outsource for, so many other aspects of their life, but for the biggest financial outlay, they're still wanting to go it alone. And some people do a great job of it and good luck to them, but I still think the vast majority would be better off with professional help if they find the right people. So I hope that changes and we see some fundamental shifts away from agents controlling that process and leveling the playing field in terms of the consumer having a better outcome.
Yeah, I'd say watch this space, Jared, but I think what we're doing at Hello Haus is it's definitely a challenge because it's such a unique business model and we're building it out, but it's building out with good intentions that it's there for the end consumer, and I think if you have that way, that driving force, we'll get there. Where it'll evolve into, we're definitely heavy with tech, so it's pretty exciting. What will happen in the next 5 years? I don't know. That's why I'm like that futuristic mind. I'm just trying to always think like, how is this evolving into? And like we're somewhat of mediators as well as like, I guess, negotiation and coaches for this process. But yeah, we'll see where we go. And is there anything else that you wanted to add, Jared?
No, I mean, I feel like we could have another hour chat, but I think
we will, mate. I've got my confidence levels. I've got Scotty on a Saturday.
We'll just book you in every Saturday. You won't have a weekend anymore, Scott. We'll just get you in every Saturday.
Nice. Look forward to it.
Thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. And if you're open to chatting again, we'd love to have you back. Always, boys. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, thanks. Keep up the good work. Yeah, thank you. Everybody that is listening, thank you for listening. Hit the like button, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.